Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Brave Cat here once again with another Frontier Signals update. So for today, there's a couple of interesting things to look at here, but overall, especially in terms of space weather, there's not a whole lot to cover, and it's not just due to the fact that there's not much going on. There is, however, more data anomalies happening. So we can see that up here. We can see a little chunk of data missing from here. And the biggest thing that I noticed, which sadly involves all of these SDO feeds on this website. So it seems like altogether SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory, has not really uploaded any data going into today. So all these feeds completely stop from yesterday, and this is the most updated image we get from there. If we go all the way down to the SDO magnetogram for these sunspots, again, this is also the exact same image that I was covering 24 hours ago. So something seems to be happening there. Really can't get too much information on it. Their website says the same thing up here that it has had up there for a while. So I'm not really sure what's going on, even all the recent images on their main website. Again, these are all from the 27th, and this is UTC, so there's pretty much no updates on that. And when we go to the NOAA, we do see some more updated images here from the GOES 19. So this is the most recent image from what they have on here, and we can easily see that oncoming newest sunspot group to emerge is pretty much in full view. So if we go over here, take a look at the far side sunspot images here, that region that was yellow before, all of that is completely in view. So all these other feeds and images from SDO specifically are pretty much completely outdated by a whole 24 hours. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I hope that's not something that will continue. But other than that, things have been pretty calm. Still waiting for these new active regions to more directly face Earth and see what this final active region sunspot group potentially has in store. So moving on from that, got some technical glitches and a little bit of weirdness going on, but we'll go ahead and go to the earthquake side here. So first off, we're just gonna drag it out really quickly here. And really what I'm highlighting out of all this is all of the deep activity that has happened in the last 7 days and is ongoing. So it's a little bit hard to see with all the rings on, but anything that is here raised higher off the globe is going to be the deeper activity. So as you can see, pretty much the entire West Pacific looks like a pin cushion pretty much. So there has been still a lot of ongoing deep events going pretty much everywhere. And so with that, now I didn't think I was going to mention this, but I guess I will, just because why not, I guess. So it was kind of weird. Last night I had a dream. Well, I had a few dreams, but one of them I was like literally kind of looking pretty much right at this. Like it was like I was dreaming of Earthquake 3D. Okay, that's how you know. That's how you know things are going too far here. But anyways, in the dream, literally it looked like the southeastern region of Asia, more specifically here in Myanmar, pretty much right at the bend of the easternmost part of the Himalayas. That is where, for whatever reason, it looked like there was a major, pretty much the next major earthquake, potentially the thing following that Deep 7. I don't know why that is, but I just decided, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to mention that. Because if it somehow happens that this is where the next major earthquake strikes in this region, that would be pretty mind-blowing. Now, I don't really think that is where it is likely to strike. At least just looking at the I guess more or less the quiet regions here. Japan seems to be taking a lot more activity. Some of that seems to be volcanic. And there has been a pretty significant swarm still ongoing in this region. So this is off of one of the islands of Japan. And then Philippines is looking a little bit quiet. And then also down here, right in the middle of Papua New Guinea, and like the border between that and eastern Indonesia. So I think it's still more likely for that larger activity to strike in this region, but I guess just be on the watch for something like that. It feels kind of funny just even saying that. It's a pretty bold prediction, I suppose. But speaking of bold predictions, Dutch Sense has forecasted days ago at this point. I think about 4 days ago, he was talking about, first started talking about a potential 6 to be striking like this southernmost part of California here somewhere. And that does seem to track. That is a much more likely forecasting option. So we can see from last 24 hours or so, we have had a pretty decent uptick in tremors and general earthquake activity going into the United States, while the entire Canada region and Pacific Northwest seem to be oddly quiet. So the tremor map again shows there's at least something. There's 8 whole tremors that show up on here. And looking at the recent earthquakes, there has been, for the 28th, a handful of earthquakes, and all of these are pretty much in the 2.0 range, while most of the others on here are barely even notable. So I thought that was something of note because we have everything from today pretty much in a 2, except for this one, it's a 1.9. And then everything before that is less than a 2 or even less than a 1. So that could still indicate the influx of pressure moving in here, which is pretty well reflected on everywhere else, especially here where we see this pretty sizable swarm coming out of Nevada. So I kind of briefly looked this up. Didn't find anything there, but there's always all sorts of things going on in Nevada here. We have all the previous nuclear testing sites, which I don't particularly know where all that went on at. So this location, this is from the coordinates pulled up on one of those earthquakes. And so, you know, it's just out here in the middle of the desert. Got these random craggy mountains that could be something of note in terms of seismology and whatnot. But other than that, I'm really not sure why that is. So we'll just move on from that. And so let's just take one last look here. So again, we've had all the deep events. And the volcanism is going to play a pretty big part here. Because, actually, I'll cover Italy here in a second because there was also something noteworthy that happened there. But looking at the volcanoes, and this is going into the 1st of March, UTC. And when you see like things going into the next day here at around this time, you can really see what the most prominent locations are with ongoing eruptions. And this is pretty much where all the volcanic ash plumes are coming from, is these 3 locations. But looking at the entire list from the 28th, we have 9 volcanoes around Japan. We have 15 volcanoes throughout Indonesia. So let me just kind of pull it up on here because I wrote down those notes. So starting off here at the Vanuatu region, which is basically still part of kind of Indonesia, basically. At least I consider it. Still the same similar region. We have 1 here, 15 throughout Indonesia, 3 of them in the Philippines, and then again 9 of those volcanoes are around Japan, which includes some of these islands down here. And then we have nothing actually listed in Kamchatka, but I'm sure those volcanoes are still in some sort of unrest. We have 2 from Alaska, and then going down here, we have like 1 in central Mexico, 3 in Guatemala, and then we got Ecuador, Peru, and North Chile. So pretty much the entire Ring of Fire is pretty much active at this moment, so to speak. So I thought that was definitely something to relate to the seismology here, because we see a lot more deep events still happening, and we have yet to see a major earthquake happen pretty much in this whole week, besides maybe like in the last 4 to 6 days or so. We haven't had anything bigger than a 6, I believe. So it seems like some of that pressure is starting to resolve in the form of the volcanism and with these strange earthquake swarms we got here. So this one up here is still ongoing. Still very recent activity going on there. And then going into Europe, things have actually simmered out a little bit. But again, that's because I think the entire Pacific is still trying to resolve the influx of pressure that happened. And then we have the solar dynamics to kind of give the last say on what is going to be happening. But with that being said, there is definitely some more prominent activity we could expect in the West Coast. Even off the coast of Oregon here, it's not too uncommon to see 5s and stuff pop off with what we got going on. So, trying to make this update a little more brief. There's not a whole lot besides some of the glitches happening on the solar feeds, some of the potential kind of off reporting happening in the Northwest, and all the volcanic activity going on. So I guess I'll just wrap it up here with the Italy earthquakes, where we did have a significant 3.5 that was reportedly felt, widely felt. So this is the second event that I've seen very recently where it's a very shallow earthquake and it's only a 3.5, and yet it is felt widely in the area. So if that starts to become a trend, then we know kind of what's going on here in Europe, because I still think Italy is definitely more or less the kind of thermostat gauge seismically and volcanically for all of Europe. So when you start seeing volcanoes waking up like Stromboli and activity such as this going on seismically near Naples, I think that is a pretty good indication of what we got going on throughout Europe here. So I'm just going to continue to keep using this resource because it seems like a pretty good thing to keep looking at here. Again, it relates to the rest of Europe, and some of the reporting agencies coming out of here are a little bit hard to nail down, but we at least have the stuff going on here we can look at. So I think with that, that'll pretty much wrap things up here. The next major update I want to do this website, I pretty much want to just get a whole bunch of stuff done. I want to really get the mobile version locked in and fix any minor issues going on. I'm going to try to find some better sources of far side sunspot imagery, because there is a couple more sources. I would say that these two images are by far the most useful and the easiest to look at as far as far side sunspots go. So it honestly really sucks that these don't work on here, and like I said, I could get them to work if I provided some sort of backend or proxy server to host, to embed those on here. But then I would have to go an entirely different route with web page hosting, which down the line I could look into that. But for right now, this is just going to be hosted on GitHub, and I'm going to push out those updates through here. So with that being said, hope y'all enjoyed this one. Please like and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all in the next.